Now, 7 young leaders have been shortlisted to win up to $80,000 for their socially impactful ventures in Africa. The finalists run transformative projects in key areas of impact, ranging from educational technology to sustainable fashion and public health. They came from Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and even as far afield as Canada. And to tell us a little bit more about the Äänit Prize, I spoke to Mandela Rhodes Foundation CEO, Judy Sikuza. All right, before we get into the Äänit Prize itself, the Mandela Rhodes Foundation, set up in 2003, what's its mission? What is it about?
Peter, our patron, Nelson Mandela, really wanted us to find the most exceptional young leaders on the continent, give them an opportunity to support their education, as well as really develop them as the next generation of young leaders. So over the past 18 years, we've been very privileged to have students from 30 African countries studying across 35 disciplines and really trying to ask critical questions of how do we really transform and redefine the Africa that we want to create.
So how have you been able to do this over time, develop African leadership? What sort of things have you been able to do?
Fantastic. So we support students to study an honors or a master's degree in any South African institution that they choose. And then really the most fundamental component of our offering is the leadership development program. So we bring together these young African leaders several times across the year. We bring key leaders and speakers. We help them problem solve some of the societal issues, and a part of the big magic that we call the Mandela Rhodes magic is the fact that an Egyptian student can sit across a Cameroonian student, a Zimbabwean student, and share lessons about how they're experiencing their countries, how they're thinking about leadership, reconciliation, entrepreneurship, and education. And it's through those engagements where our hope as a foundation is that these young people can then continue to be in contact, continue to think about how to create that Pan-African vision that Madiba had.
And so we get to the Äänit Prize now, first year. I suppose this is another step in this journey that you've been on. Tell us about this prize. What is it about? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, so it's a prize that is really trying to say, how do we support the initiatives of our alumni? And we've partnered with our sister organization, the Rhodes Trust, in this initiative. So this opportunity is open to both Mandela Rhodes scholars as well as Rhodes scholars who are social entrepreneurs trying to solve solutions for the most marginalized people in the continent. And a big part of this is to say, how do you really begin to think about the innovative ways in which we can solve issues in health, in sustainability, in education, in entrepreneurship, or youth unemployment? And so this prize is really trying to put some resources in supporting these very talented alumni who are out there trying to really push the boundaries.
Social impact seems to be something very, very important in terms of the champions you're looking for. Why is that?
Peter, we want to be able to see a continent that really creates a sense of dignity, of humanity, innovation and creativity. And I think these are words that are not often used when we talk about the African continent, because the way in which sometimes we're projected in the global world is, kind of this backward continent that's still struggling. And I think for us, we recognize that, in fact, we have all the resources we need, both in terms of human capital, but most importantly, the talent that is going to ask critical questions that help us shift the system. Many initiatives have existed in the past, and we see ourselves as just amplifying those efforts in the ecosystem to accelerate the progress. We can no longer remain in the state we are in as an African continent, the level of poverty, the level of unemployment, which I think Nelson Mandela himself would look back and be very disappointed in, because we actually have all the resources we need as as a continent. So how do we then really back the next generation, which is these young leaders? And you know this, that by 2030, 70% of the continent is going to be under the age of 35. And so how do we begin to say we believe in young people to be leaders, to be the ones who are coming up with strategies and visions that transform our continent? And I think in a way, the Äänit Prize is trying to recognize that potential and begin to invest in these young people now.
Talking about these young people, tell us about the 7 finalists that are in line to perhaps get this big prize. What is it that you saw in them? Describe some of their qualities.
Very good question. So we have, our 7 finalists come from Uganda, South Africa, Nigeria, and globally we saw there's and Peter, I'll be very honest with you. I don't know if I have the capacity to be an entrepreneur. I think you have to believe in creating a new path that no one has ever walked on. So I think that tenacity, that perseverance, that belief that actually there's a way in which we can solve this problem in a different way, So some of the finalists we have, for example, include Uvuyani Mhlome, who he's a Cura Medical, and he's trying to say, how do we provide home-based healthcare that really reduces the pressure points in our medical system? And, thinking about living in COVID-19 and the impact of, healthcare and provision of services, using technology is a way of being able to really recognize from the beginning what critical issues there are that then force you to go to hospital instead of people inundating the system. We've got really interesting project looking at the decentralization of the malaria research process, and this is happening in Kenya. And how do we really again create access to medical health services? Really exciting initiative. Esetu Tsenga, who heads up Rewoven, and she is really looking at the sustainability sector, particularly around how do we get women empowerment happening in the production of waste material to provide clothing, and we know that a lot of women are actually employed in the clothing sector. So a really interesting group of people who demonstrate some of the key values we hold as a foundation vis-a-vis innovation, creativity, courage to ask the critical questions, ethical leadership, which Mandela stood for, and really also the competence and excellence to be able to deliver on the product at the end of the day.
And I think you hinted about this earlier in this conversation. I suppose it's quite heartwarming for you to be able to see all this talent across the continent, that we are literally on a continent that's got a mine of young people that are quite capable.
Exactly, Peter. And I mean, I'm very privileged myself being a Mandela Rhodes Scholar. I was on program 14 years ago, and I think that was probably the first time that I was really activated to the idea of being part of a larger continent. And I think it's sad, as South Africans, and sometimes we can be so close-minded about the beautiful opportunity and value that exists in actually thinking about how we work together collectively. And so I think, in a way, it's inspiring to see Mandela's vision come to fruition, where we continue to create more and more opportunities for young people across the continent to exercise their talents, bring forward their ideas, and to just, shake things up.
So this $80,000, I mean, that's a huge prize. What are you hoping that it will do for the finalists and the winner and their projects?
Yeah. I think it's a recognition that they are asking very important questions for our society, and that it really, takes them one step closer to being able to expand their impact. Because ultimately, the judges had to look at the projects and the initiatives and say, where does it seem most best placed to put this resource? And that we believe if we invest in this project or these projects, that we'll begin to really see a substantive impact, both in terms of potentially job creation, but also a reimagining of that sector. So we're really trying to push the boundary. A big part of what the Äänit Prize is trying to do is how do we push the boundary? How do we ask different questions? And these 7 finalists in their different sectors have been doing exactly that.
Judy Sikuza, CEO of the Mandela Rhodes Foundation, thank you so much indeed. This is an exciting initiative, and we wish you and the young people that you're helping to succeed and change our continent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us, Peter.